And God said, Let the earth bring forth grass, and the herb yielding seed, and the fruit trees yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth, and it was so. And the earth brought forth grass and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind. And God saw that it was good. The cannabis plant goes back 5,000 years in history and tied to many iconic periods, according to recovery.org, marijuana history. Cannabis, also known as marijuana, as told on this site, was used as an ingredient in holy anointing oil referenced in the Hebrew version of Exodus. Furthermore, it states that ancient Egyptians reportedly used it to treat glaucoma as well as inflammation. Chinese emperors called cannabis a popular medicine in 2900 BC, and the Chinese had identified more than 100 medicinal uses for marijuana in 100 AD. The Romans' medical texts listed marijuana as a cure for headaches in 70 AD. They also bought the root of the plant and used it in treatment for gout, arthritis, and generalized pain. And lastly, the Arabians used the plant from 800 AD to 900 AD for migraines, pain, and syphilis. The Greek historian Herodotus described cannabis being smoked for spiritual, emotional, and sometimes recreational purposes. However, in the United States, the plant has had a long and tumultuous past since the discovery of the country. It was originally used as a textile material and later as a medicinal ingredient before becoming highly controversial. The origins of marijuana in this United States can be related back to the 1600s when the settlers used and grew hemp like any other crop. In 1619, the Virginia Assembly passed legislation requiring all farmers to grow hemp, and some states used it later as a legal tender for trading. George Washington questioned the potential medicinal uses of the plant in his 1765 journal, and in 1840, marijuana became widely accepted in mainstream medicine and was an ingredient in over-the-counter products. By 1850, marijuana was used as treatment for pain, appetite suppression, appetite stimulation, relief of nausea and vomiting, and wait for it, opioid withdrawals. Then for the next 30 years, from 1900 to 1930, the plant was used as an ingredient in a variety of medication, marketed as a painkiller but used for sedation and to treat muscle spasm also. Then, Mexican immigrants began introducing it for recreational, and critics started associating it with Mexican immigrants and referred to it as the Mexican menace. This is when everything changed for the plant. The 1930s found the United States in a Great Depression, resulting in job loss for many Americans, creating fear and stagnation of the Mexican immigrants, as Americans worried the Mexicans would take their jobs. This led to public concern over marijuana. The name marijuana was paralleled with the plants to the Mexicans. In 1936, a propaganda film was made called Reefer Madness, depicting the plant as a drug that leads to violence, rape, suicide, and psychosis. The Marijuana Tax Act, which restricted marijuana use to only those who could afford heavy tax for specific authorized industrial and medicinal uses. Starting in 1930, when Americans' attitude on opioid, cocaine, and marijuana emerged, a man named Harry Anslinger, the first commissioner of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. With the end of prohibition, Anslinger was in fear of losing his job, so he sought a new threat on America and manufactured the war on drugs. Prior to this, marijuana received little attention, according to Laura Smith, author of how a racist hate monger masterminded America's war on drugs. And that was on timeline.com. Ainslinger wrote an article called Marijuana Assassination of the Youth, which debuted in American Magazine in 1937. He brought up all kinds of things and demonized the plant to the Congress and got them to come up and ban it. And they said it had no medicinal purpose. Now, Anslinger was a man that had no medical history at all. He didn't have a background in medicine or nothing. But he used fear and drove it home and made Americans scared of the plant. And they stifled all the research of all the good things that this plant could have done. Now, over half of the country has some kind of legalization for marijuana. And the United States federal government will not go ahead and decriminalize it. Why? Because it will free so many black and brown people. Marijuana laws is doing so much against what the civil rights movement did for black and brown people. If you get a conviction for marijuana, you can't get housing. It affects your ability to get a job. And many of these people got these arrests when they were young, adolescents, and it's still going on following them today. What I don't understand is, how can half of the country say it's legal and you can use it, and the other half say not? But the bottom line is, marijuana is a plant that grows from a seed that God made, and God said that it was good. It should not be banned. It should be legalized, at least decriminalized, so that research can be done to find out all the many good uses that it could do for us. It's been around forever. It don't take much to grow, and it should be legal. Thank you.